You ever seen a ghost? Been abducted? Heard your name whispered from the other room when you're all alone? No, you say? Me either. But if you're like me, you're still fascinated by the paranormal. It seems everyone else has had an experience, and you want to believe it all. So why doesn't it happen to us? What does it all mean? How does it work? Is any of it real? Welcome to Paranorm Girl, a show that will attempt to answer these questions by taking the paranormal completely apart in search of proof. I'm not a blind believer, nor a hardened skeptic. I'm just looking for answers and willing to accept what I find. What's spooky with you? The shadow in the corner. It was very late when I woke up suddenly to use the restroom. It was around 4 a.m. I used the restroom, then lay back down for about 2 minutes, trying to go back to sleep. Suddenly, I feel extremely thirsty, so I grab my water jug, walk to the door, and open it. That is when I saw it. As if it appeared out of nowhere, a tall, solid black figure was standing behind the open door in the corner of my room, no eyes or mouth to be seen. I didn't even dare to look directly at it and continued to stand frozen in place, peering at it out of the corner of my eye. The figure didn't move. With exception to a slight, idle, swaying motion, it was absolutely motionless. Without moving my footing or the direction of my vision, I slowly closed the door. When the door closed, that's when I realized just how tall this thing was. For more context, the height from my floor to my ceiling is just under 10 feet. The figure was standing flat on the ground, and its upper back and shoulders were touching the ceiling. At first, this detail didn't click in my head. Then it hit me like a bag of bricks. If it's slouching, it's even taller than it looks. This fact was utterly bone-chilling. While contemplating my next move, I make another observation. This thing's hands are absolutely massive, especially when compared to its abnormally small feet, which were smaller than mine. The strangest part about this thing's hands was that its palms were relatively proportionate to the rest of its body, but those fingers were long as hell. Allow me to elaborate on just how long those fingers were. I'm just around 5'8". This thing's legs, while standing flat on the floor, stopped at just around my chest. That's right, this thing's hips were around my chest height. This thing's wrist started right around its upper thigh, just like normal, but its hands, specifically its fingers, reached all the way down to its ankle area. The more I examined it, the more terrified I became. The last major observation I made before making my next move was that it was blacker than black itself. I realized this when I remembered that I had blackout blinds on my windows, which means there was absolutely no light in my room, but I could still see this thing as clear as day. I could even see a strange, cloudy, smoky aura surrounding it. At this point, I had been standing there for about 2 to 3 minutes, even though it felt like hours. I somehow grow the balls to reach out and touch it. I don't move my footing, nor do I move my gaze. I begin to reach out. When I reach into this figure's previously mentioned cloudy aura, my hand grows to freezing temperatures. Although it made my hand cold, I didn't hesitate and continued to reach. I had been reaching for this figure for what felt like hours, slowly creeping towards it, inch by inch. Right when I was about to touch the figure itself, it vanished. No trace of it ever being there, nor that it would return. The figure itself, the cloudy, smoky aura, even the extreme cold temperature, all vanished within a second. All right, so let's get this show rolling. Shadow people, am I right? Shadow beings, the Hat Man, the old hag, ooh, the crawler, ooh, wisps. Okay, that one's just kind of cute. I don't know who came up with that term, but that's adorable. It makes them sound so harmless. It's like what do the British people call their fries? No. They call their fries chips, and their chips crisps. Wisps. Okay, so These are all names and terms of various shadow figure entities that have been reported across the globe, now seemingly in record numbers, more than ever before. Some experiencers have described them as a menacing and evil force, while others have reported a more neutral or even helpful energy in their interactions with them, like a guide or a guardian angel of some sort. Some speculate that shadow people are actually interdimensional beings or time travelers here to observe. And of course, there are skeptics and science folk who believe these visions are nothing more than the result of physiological and psychological conditions, such as sleep paralysis or the side effects of drugs and alcohol. Right off the bat, we can cast a little doubt on this phenomenon exclusively going hand in hand with sleep paralysis. Author and Hatman expert Heidi Hollis recounted her very first shadow person experience on episode 247 of the Conspiranormal podcast. She states she'd been staying out of town, and her and a friend were walking along in broad daylight, and she sees this big black mass jumping from tree to tree, following them along the road. Follows them the whole way to their destination, then does it again the whole way back to the place she was staying. She quickly draws a picture of what she saw, ultimately labeling it as a head and shoulders shadow, shows her friend, and surprisingly, the friend is not shocked at all and tells Heidi that, yeah, she's been seeing it herself for years by that point. She's mostly like, whatevs, homie. Anyway, Heidi proceeds upstairs to grab her stuff to go and turns to leave the room and says the same entity she'd just seen outside was then standing there, blocking the doorway. So, not sleeping, no sleep paralysis, definitely awake, and also, apparently, seeing the same figure that her friend had seen. And piggybacking on the theory that these things are nothing more than hallucinations, author Mike Ricksecker says that shortly after moving to a new house when he was younger, both he and his mother would see the same figure darting around. Thinking it was just them seeing things, it wasn't revealed until later that they were in fact both seeing the same thing. So, are these shared hallucinations? Is that a thing? Perhaps in Mike's instance there was a gas leak in the house, making him and his mother see things. And maybe both Heidi and her friend are crazy, or they both have schizophrenia. Skeptics always have an out, don't they? But look, Heidi is not the only one to say she had been awake, in broad daylight, and had full ability to move, walk, talk, think, etc. during her experience. And neither of them are alone in having had a shared shadow person encounter. Something is going on. Something is happening here. Now, before we jump any deeper into our very first episode and the shadow person phenomenon, I think I should probably introduce myself and explain what the hell we're doing here. Hi, y'all. I'm Kristen. I freaking love all things spooky and supernatural and mysterious and out of this world. Anything haunted or creepy or without cause or reason or explanation, I'm here for it. Though I myself have had very limited exposure to my own paranormal experiences, I'm still fascinated by it. And we're going to talk about it. All of it. Why? Because I've been in this semi-skeptic, semi-openness about its existence and validity my entire life. I guess you could say I'm agnostic about it all. Though I myself do not have the proof, or what I would call proof, to back it up, I think even just the sheer number of stories and reported experiences and inexplicable events that have happened all around the world by thousands and thousands of people are enough to sit up and pay attention. Don't you? I can literally sit here and say that I'm 100% sure that something is going on. It's the what that I am now after. Enter Paranorm Girl. So the idea behind it is to educate both myself and you about the paranormal, a subject that is quite literally endless in its possibilities, its theories, its very content. And I realized not that long ago that I just keep plodding along, semi-believing in something that in all reality I just don't know that much about. So why not dig deeper? Why not prove myself right or wrong? Why not educate others along the way and have some fun while doing it? So here we are. So every season, we're going to cover a different topic. Each season will consist of 10 to 15 episodes on a different aspect of that topic and giving us all enough time to absorb the information. Look at all the different angles. Hear from the skeptics, hear from the believers, hear from the experts. And voila! Armed with enough information by the end of each season, we should be able to say without a second thought that aliens exist, that there is an afterlife, that magic is real, the Mothman, clairvoyance, etc., etc. We will be able to coherently understand any of these topics and say whether or not it even holds water. That's the idea anyway. How it will change and morph itself over the course of time, I can't say. But it's going to be good. It might be fun, and if nothing else, we'll all have learned something new. And you guys, did I mention that I'm going to do the work? I love research. I live for it. All you guys got to do is turn the lights down, crack a beer, sit back, and enjoy. So, let us begin. Shadow people. What the hell are they? So, the shadow person phenomenon has been around for a very long time, and it is one of the most reported types of ghost sightings. So, is there something to it? Are they real? And if so, what the fuck? Here is where I'm starting. This is the base query. What is a shadow person? For this episode, we're not talking about the experience, what the experience is like or how it made people feel. That's going to come later. For now, we are just talking about them. What has been said about their appearance and what are they thought to be? Oftentimes, they are human-shaped, but have also been described as fluttering blankets, morphing, crawling creatures, short and fat, but also tall and slender, long fingers, red eyes, definitely a mass to these visions, but can be translucent. So many recount the being as fleeting, quick, and just out of their peripheral vision, only to turn to find nothing standing there. However, some have started reporting witnessing these things straight on, literally being allowed to view them. So, I hope that answers that question. Just a simple description of tall, small, quick, but standing its ground, red eyes, no eyes, long fingers, and maybe also it's a spider thing that you can't quite see, but only sometimes. That's what I'm here for. Simple, straightforward answers. This show is really going well so far. Now, personally, I have never seen a shadow person. I'll tell my experience real quick. I may have possibly seen like what they would call a shadow spider. I was staying at my sister's trailer a few years back, and we were sleeping. It's the middle of the night, and I woke up, and I felt like that feeling you get when someone's just staring right at you. I felt someone looking at me. And the way that the room and the trailer's all set up, every trailer, I grew up in trailers, every trailer has got that long ass hallway, right, that goes the length of the trailer. And the bed in the bedroom, the headboard was right up against the wall, that if your head was on the pillow and you looked right, you could see down the length of the place. So all the way down the hallway, and then it opens up at the very end, like where the kitchen area is and the living room sitting area. So I felt something coming from that direction, like looking at me from that direction. I turned my head, I looked down the hallway, and I saw this like a quickly crawling thing. It didn't really have like a set form. It's really hard to explain. It wasn't like cloudy or translucent. Like it was, I could see a thing crawling. And in my sleepiness of watching it, I was like, is that a rat? No, how can it be a rat like that? Because it was around the size of like a very large rat or like a small possum. And the weird thing about it, though, that I know it wasn't like an actual, like physical creature that I know of anyway, but it was crawling along the wall, but way up at the top, like right where the wall meets the ceiling. And it was crawling along it rather quickly for about 2 feet. I watched it crawl away and then like went around the corner and disappeared into the sitting area. So I don't know what that is. You tell me. Yeah, by that point of watching it, like I was awake. I wasn't, I was able to turn my head. I was able to move. I was able to think. Like there wasn't any, I was, probably still groggy from coming out of the sleep, but I was awake at that point. So, and then, nothing happened after that. I just laid there staring down the hallway, waiting for something else to happen. But, that was it. That was my experience. As far as shadow people, though, never seen one. Never seen one. Even while doing the research for this season, I got a little anxiety walking through my dark house or my place of work from the back of the building where the lights for the whole store are located, because of course they are. Of course, that's where they are. But no, not a thing, just my own fear, creating thumps or the sound of something falling over that had no evidence of it, and I'm screaming in my head whenever I'm walking through the dark, please don't let me see one now, not when I look up, not when I look to my right down the aisle, don't let there be something there. And there wasn't. Nothing happened. So, thank goodness. But you have only to type shadow person into the search bar on Reddit or pull it up on YouTube or ask a family member, and bam, everyone else in the world has seen one but you. So, my first inclination is that whatever these things may be, they exist. Something exists. I think there's something to it. Again, I just don't know what. Coming from a more scientific, psychological standpoint, the shadow person is literally one of the scariest visions our half-awake and already fear-driven primal brain can concoct. A shadow, devoid of features or visible motive, hard to see, extremely mysterious to us, someone we do not know. Literally, the physical manifestation of the unknown. All while, if we're following the sleep paralysis diagnosis, all while we're paralyzed in our beds, helpless to fight back or change our situation. It's awful. It really is a waking nightmare. Or, though the reports of seeing these things are overwhelmingly negative, filled with fear and dread, its very blank slateness can also account for the opinion of people who have had this encounter, who might call them more of a guardian or observer, a helpful entity, because there is nothing about their appearance or any visual giveaways to tell us otherwise. It is also said that we concoct these visions, or more specifically, the vision of the Hat Man, because that is what our minds latch onto, thanks to certain villains in popular culture, like Freddy Krueger, the Babadook, Jack the Ripper, those sorts of characters. The only problem I have found with this explanation, though, well, there's a lot of problems with this explanation, but the one that sticks out to me is the fact that some people report having had their first encounter with the Hat Man when they were extremely young, as in too young to have been exposed to these types of films or TV shows, that they should have had, and report as such, no previous tainting of this particular image. Also, as far as this solely being the result of sleep paralysis, I call bullshit. Not only have people reported seeing things after fully awaking or while lying in bed just getting ready to sleep, but seemingly more and more people are starting to report seeing them while fully awake, walking around in the daylight. No drugs, no alcohol involved, and no sleep deprivation to speak of. Another scientific explanation, which is talked about in a documentary on Amazon right now called The Hat Man, Documented Cases of Pure Evil, is people with Rh negative blood type. Now, I hadn't heard this one before. I don't think it should cast a broad umbrella in trying to explain away all cases of these sightings, but it certainly is an interesting lens on this whole phenomenon and absolutely, obviously, plays a role here. A study was done by the International Community for Alien Research. Over 53,000 quote unquote contactees participated and had their blood drawn. When the blood was tested of these people who had claimed to have experiences with alien abductions and experiences with entities, 60% of them came back testing Rh negative. By the way, fellow O negatives, we make up the majority in that little group. Weird, right? Coincidence? Probably not, as something like in the US, 85% of the population has Rh positive blood type versus the 15% with negative. I guess I don't see this as any kind of explanation, maybe more like a clue. And it definitely leads to more questions. Are people with Rh negative blood more imaginative, more prone to hallucinations? Are they just wired that differently than the rest of us? Or does the rare lack of this protein make a person more open to psychical experiences, more empathic? Or are entities, for some reason, just attracted to people who lack the protein? It's not all cases all the time, but it's enough to make me cock my head a little bit. Also, and we will talk about this later on in our experts episode, but people report seeing aliens and or like a alien shadow person combo during these experiences. So, all right, I'm gonna go off into the weeds a little bit. So, if the link is established now to combine those two entities, add in all of the reports coming out. There was a Canadian news report, the dump of the CIA documents. Oh, by the way, titled UFO Fact or Fiction, which you can access and read for yourself on the CIA.gov website. And it details their investigations into reports of UFO sightings from the 40s to the 90s. Some of the stuff is incredibly convincing that UFOs do, in fact, exist. Okay, so if UFOs exist, then one might ascertain that aliens exist. And if aliens exist, where does that leave us on shadow people? People are seeing them together. If the alien bit is real, then would shadow people now exist by default? Or are they one and the same? Just some mysterious human-shaped skin suit that aliens can take on in order to more closely come to us or observe us. This is just really food for thought. This is how my brain works. I just kind of trip over one question after another. There are so many more theories talking about what shadow people are, what causes them, where they come from. And this spans across the board in all cultures, all walks of life, all kinds of jobs. I'm going to be pulling some of this information from one of the books I'm using in my current research on this subject called Darkness Walks. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out yourself. I recommend it. And some of this is also going to be coming from various sources on the web. I'll put some links for those in the description as well. So, numerous authors have written and spoken publicly about what they theorize they are, like Heidi Hollis, Mike Ricksecker, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Jason Offutt, just to name a few, but there are so many more. Too many to name here in the first episode. There are scientists and psychologists and physiologists like Stan Gooch from England who have theorized about shadow people, the Hat Man, sleep paralysis, and how it all can be tied together or explained away. Mr. Gooch, who is also an author, says that shadow people are real, along with many other paranormal entities. Now, he doesn't necessarily believe them to be spirits, but rather a projection of our own minds, or something that he terms our other mind, that can, quote, produce real, independent events in the real world. Some believe them to be astral bodies of actual people who are astral traveling, but also the astral bodies of people who are just in between incarnations and are earthbound for one reason or another. Christians believe shadow people are demons, negative and evil, conniving and violent demons. A pastor from Kentucky named Bishop Long, who is a longtime student of demonology, says shadow people must be taken seriously and can be quite dangerous. He does make the distinction that sometimes the shadow figure can actually be a human spirit trying to manifest, but warns us of shadows more demonic in nature and that you can always tell the difference. He says, should you see an apparition of what appears to be a human spirit, there will always be some type of defect if it is demonic in nature. A lot of folks have come to believe these figures to be something called the jinn, which is a term from the Middle East and the Quran, but would best be recognized in our Western culture as a genie. Jinns were here before humans and are made of smokeless fire. They supposedly live right alongside us on Earth, choosing when and when not to be seen. They've been bestowed many special powers according to their origin story in order to test their faith to God. And in the Muslim faith, there are believed to be both good and bad jinn. Recently, I was listening to another paranormal podcast who had a guest speaking on the subject, and it was his belief that every single person is actually assigned their very own jinn, who is with them throughout their life. It seems very similar, I suppose, to how Christians might view a guardian angel or how more New Age folk might think of their higher self or spirit guides. I don't know. The idea of the jinn probably deserves its very own season, as it's almost an entirely different and fascinating subject in itself. There is also the possibility that these entities are interdimensional beings who can either be coming here from a parallel universe whose laws of physics do not match our own. So while we cannot access them, they can most certainly access us, or due to some sort of resonant synchronization of energy. So some kind of door or portal is open in their dimension, allowing them to slip through. And the final idea of what I think we should talk about today, as far as what they are ghosts. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, this is one of the most reported types of ghost sighting. So it probably goes without saying, but that is one of the most largely held beliefs about shadow people, that they are a visual manifestation of an actual ghost, that there's nothing naughty or nice about them. These are simply our loved ones who have passed on, who have summoned up enough energy to manifest themselves. And I guess without taking any of the other theories into consideration, this would probably be the group I would fall in if I had to choose right now. It makes sense to me. A lot of the time, shadow people are often found in notoriously haunted joints, seem to have a keen attachment to the land of the living. They seem to be intelligent in that they have been known to interact with people, react to things going on around them. I remember a long time ago now watching an episode of TAPS. Do you remember that show, TAPS? I think that was the Atlantic Paranormal Society. And they were investigating this prison. This was the first time I had actually, I think, officially been introduced to the concept of shadow person. Unfortunately, I do not recall which episode or what facility it was, but I distinctly remember them capturing video of this shadow figure up on one of the upper floors with a still camera. You can see this shadow emerge from the distant shadows, come toward the camera, and as if it saw the camera, as if on cue, it makes a sharp turn and beelines it back to the walkway, back into the darkness. It's quick. It really is just a shadowy thing. But you can literally see what look like legs, alternating strides, and it appears to be intelligently reacting to being filmed and makes a quick getaway. This footage was incredible from what I remember. And before you go all, Kristen, those shows are all faked. They gotta do it for the ratings. Dudes, this was TAPS. This was way back at the very birth of ghost hunting shows on TV. The only dramatics going on that show was this beautiful, spooky bromance between Jason and Grant. Okay? Side note, I actually considered for a while, like, applying to be one of their interns. This was way back when I was, like, young enough and energetic enough to do such a thing. But I really wanted to just work on that show. Even back when I was in college, that was when I was in college. Even back then, I loved the paranormal. Okay, so I think we will wrap it up there for today. Never fear, there will be much, much more to come. We will definitely dive deeper into various facets of this phenomenon in order to hopefully reach a conclusion by the end of this season. I just wanted to get something going and get this moving. I've been doing a lot of research, you guys, and I've just been kind of chomping at the bit to get recording. I'm a logical person. I will be first to admit that. But I am also an open-minded dreamer, too. One that wants to believe deeply, to believe that the mysterious is real, that there is something to all of this. Because ultimately, I want to know that life exists after death. And that's a big jump to make right now. As you come to know me, you'll see how I try to connect those dots. And yes, we are definitely doing a season on NDEs and afterlife theories and all that. So if you're not into that kind of thing, keep scrolling, as they say. But if you are, welcome. Stay tuned. It's probably going to get weird. But right at the start, I wanted to explore something fun and also something that I didn't know much about. It absolutely terrifies me what I may come to know. But ultimately, I am just too curious, and I'm probably going to end up getting bit in the ass with this one. All right, y'all, that is all on this subject for now. Thanks for hanging in there with me for Paranorm Girl's maiden voyage. Next week, I'm going to talk about the history and lore of shadow people, so should be dang interesting. If you want to keep posted and updated on future episodes or have any questions or suggestions, hit me up on the Facebook or Twitter page. The handle for both is at Paranorm Girl Pod. No hyphens, no capitals, whatever, just at Paranorm Girl Pod. They're both very, very new, so excuse me while I continue adding that content and beautifying it all for you. You can also shoot me an email, and that address is paranormgirlpod@gmail.com. And of course, if this episode really tickled you in your tickly place, I know I had fun, why don't you give me like a thumbs up or a star rating or whichever platform you're listening on. Just, show me some love. And a final note. I'm really excited to keep this lesson going. There is so much that we don't understand, that I personally don't understand. While I do this research to feed my own personal, insatiable desire to learn, I truly hope in the process to do the same for you. Let's be unfathomably insatiable students together. Let's ask the questions that beg for answers. Let's not keep accepting half-truths and slanted histories. We want more. We want the truth. And we want it now. Whether you are a believer, a skeptic, or a mix of both by the time this is all over, you will at least know you did your due diligence, gathered the evidence, and were able to form your own well-informed conclusion about ghosts, or demons, or shadow people. We don't know what they are yet, but we will learn to the best of our ability. Until we do, stay safe, keep that nightlight on, and sleep with one eye open.